Before we dive into today's episode, here at Surviving Life's Pickles, me and Hillary love introducing you guys to new therapy modalities, new methods of healing, and other ways to really dive into your personal growth and wellness. And today we're excited to have Carrie Satterly not only as our guest, but her company as our sponsor for the show, Reclaimed Wellness, which is a transformational company. Carrie is a powerhouse of healing, purpose, and heart. She's a registered nurse, certified coach, energy worker, and founder of multiple transformational programs. And she's been through enough life's pickles to fill a whole jar and then some.
At Reclaim Wellness, located in Richfield, Utah, Carrie and her team offer a full range of holistic services. They offer everything from massage therapy, IV therapy, sound healing, foot zoning, Reiki, breathworks, and emotional coaching. But what really sets them apart is the soul of their work. This isn't surface level wellness, it's real, deep, aligned transformation.
Do you want to experience breakthrough energy and community? Check out the Inner Alignment series, where you get to connect with 6 of the most incredible coaches for just $14 a call. It's the most accessible, high-value coaching available.
Do you prefer connecting in person? Join the Empowerment Circle, a once a month live experience that blends movement, mindset, and soul based activation. Are you ready for true transformation? Carrie's Purpose Driven Coaching is a powerful program focused on the emotional intelligence, personal identity, and discovering your true life's purpose. She also teaches you how to live in alignment with your unique human design. It's a game changer for how you move through life.
We were honored to be able to have Carrie just personally do a human design for myself, for Hillary, and then to do us as a couple. It was so empowering and enlightening to learn about our past, to learn about where we're at now, and see the map that's available to us in the future if we'll tap into all our abilities and really focus on what means and matters to us most. I'm super excited to start using this tool in our lives to continue to grow in the way and the areas that we want to. Carrie's work is nothing short of life-changing, and it's an honor to have her not only as our guest today, but also as the sponsor of today's show. I hope you'll take the time to really listen to Carrie's story, listen to how she is now helping the community, and how she really is just truly engaged to wanting to help people change and live their fullest lives. After the episode, we're going to introduce you to a one-time deal offer for one of her amazing retreats that's coming up at the end of the month. So make sure to stay tuned and listen for that special offer at the end of this episode. Welcome back, everybody. Next episode of Surviving Life's Pickles. Scott Martin here with my lovely wife, Hillary. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And we have a wonderful guest today. Carrie, how are you?
I'm so good.
And your last name is Stratlee.
Satterly.
Satterly. Okay. I always get that wrong.
Yeah, you totally demolished that one.
Yeah, all my guests are always yelling at me. I don't get the names wrong. So, but, well, today we have an amazing story with Carrie here today. But before we jump into that topic and everything we're going to cover, we're going to hit our gratitude like we do with every episode today. And I think I'm going to start today. And with our gratitude today, I just want to say how grateful I am for springtime to finally be here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we go through these winter months and it is a little bit more depressing. You don't have as much outside interaction, and getting outside just really brings everything up and makes you feel better. Getting that sunlight, getting the birds and the bees and all the information, you know, coming around and the flowers booming. And it just makes me feel better. It makes me take a big, deep breath and just be thankful to be alive, especially in the morning when I get to walk the dogs and take them out and just hear everything bustling in nature. So I'm super grateful for this time of year and happy it's here. So, Carrie,
throw it to you.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. This is such a broad thing for me. I love gratitude. Gratitude has like actually been the antidote for so much positive in my life. I'm going to jump into just sharing a little experience about gratitude. My son has on his phone an alarm that goes off, and it's like the radar one, the really obnoxious one that everybody has.
Okay.
And so it's really cool because I've found that the power of sound and what it can do for your mind is so huge. So that being said, like even the sounds that you got to experience this morning, and even like such an obnoxious sound, that one I'm really grateful for because whenever I hear it, like his trigger with that is, what are you grateful for? So even my 4-year-old to my 11-year-old grandchildren will be like, gratitude check,
Oh,
you know?
That's great.
And even in the Maverick the other day, it went off and the guy's like, what's your phone going off like that for in the middle of the day for? It's an alarm. And he's like, it's gratitude check, dude. What you grateful for? You know, and it created such a great experience with him. But even in the grocery store, when I'm in the hustle and bustle and I hear that alarm go off, it triggers something in me a little differently than a negative trigger.
Yeah.
So anyway, grateful for sounds today. I'm just going to echo off of that a little bit, just really being able to tune in and listen.
I love that because it's going off and you guys are interacting with strangers
Mhm.
and talking about it. And we've talked about that here on the show. It's so great to make that impact every day. That's awesome.
Love it.
Very awesome. All right, Hill.
Oh, I'm going to kind of go off of Scott's, and I've kind of used this one, but I'm grateful for grounding. I'm grateful that when I get to go outside, it just centers me and brings me back to the earth. And I'm really excited to get my garden going, and just that's something I've really found to love. I used to hate gardening, and when I was a kid, I hated pulling weeds and all of that, and I never thought I would like to do something like that. And now today I have my own garden. I get to see it grow. I get to nourish it, and I'm just so grateful that I even have that opportunity. I've lived in apartments my whole life, and to just have my own little plot where I can put beautiful things in it. I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah.
So
That's good. And you know what? To wrap it all up, I'm just grateful to be sitting here. Every time we get to sit down here and have a great guest and have these amazing stories, it really just energizes us for the day and just makes everything go better. So I don't like missing an interview. We need to do one at least once a week. So I feel energized and keep everything going. It's great.
keeps us connected.
It does.
Momentum builders, right?
It is. Yeah. We just have to keep building and building and building. Oh, well, everybody, Carrie is here today. I've known Carrie for just about 10 years, roughly. We were talking. It's been almost that long since I've seen her too. It's crazy. We used to CrossFit together. She had a gym down in Richfield, and that's how we got introduced to each other, kind of in that space. And both of us has kind of migrated out of that space into this wellness space, which is kind of interesting and reconnected. And she's got an amazing story that I felt super powerful. We wanted to share her story here on the podcast today. And you own Reclaim Wellness,
Yeah.
and it's in Richfield or Salina?
Richfield.
It is in Richfield. Okay. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll kind of jump back to where this all started.
Okay. So with Reclaim Wellness, we offer a vast amount of modalities. It all started with foot zoning, though. I have been a registered nurse since 1999. I've had a long history of helping and healing and and it was a little bit of a pain point for me because within healthcare, we started to see people still getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And in my place of work, it was dialysis, so a lot of it was end of life care, and you just seen just another pill to take this symptom or to treat this symptom, and this and that, or even some health care related things was the mechanism for which caused the clients to be sitting in the chair. So for me, I needed a passion point or a place to be able to put some energy to help people heal, because once you're on dialysis, you're on dialysis. It's literally it is a life,
Yeah,
the
you're
rest
stuck
of
there.
life, right?
Mhm.
And so that being said, I started into CrossFit, so I'm kind of going backwards a little bit. I just feel like this kind of helps like bring the story in a little bit with where Reclaim came from and why we do certain things or why I chose to start with certain things. So with CrossFit, that became I've always loved fitness. I have a heart condition. I had it start after my 22 or while I was pregnant with my almost 22-year-old. And what I found was that as long as I was exercising, it didn't bother me. I had to be on medication though if I wasn't exercising.
Yeah.
So I went to these fitness classes all the time at the gym from from what, 2003? Well, actually way before that. 1995 was about when I started all of those. And as long as I was going, I felt great. And then when I got pregnant with Rayson, we got in a car accident when I was about 20 weeks and I ripped all the muscles in my lower abs, so I couldn't go. And that's when I found out I had the heart condition.
Huh.
So, ended up on medication for the rest of that pregnancy. And then the very minute I was able to go and work out, it was interesting because I no longer needed the medication.
Huh.
So in 2014, they opened up CrossFit in that same gym. And I was very resistant. I was like, well, I don't know. That looks really intimidating. I'm not that strong. Like, I just like to move my body and exercise. And then I picked up a barbell and I found out exactly how strong I was and that I didn't even realize I had that strength on the outside. I've been very resilient my whole life. On the inside, I could stand up and keep moving forward and keep going forward. However, when you realize on the outside that you are that strong, it kind of becomes addictive.
Very much.
Empowering.
And super empowering.
Yeah.
Yes. And so my outside body got very, very strong and I learned to love it. So in 2014, the same year that I started CrossFit, I also got certified to teach CrossFit. And anyway, and evolved, and we can come back to more of that story later. But what I had, well, I guess we'll just keep going. 2017, I to decide, and throughout this process, I also did a lot of mindset classes and boot camp type classes to help women just kind of stepping into this because it was intimidating for people just to step in and never picked up a barbell, and you've got these classes full of 20 people and you're like, oh, this is scary, and so we started with some boot camp classes to help people step into it and then also help with their weight loss journeys. I became a certified behavior and health coach through ACE, and that's about 2017 as well, just because I had found like behaviors is where a lot of it starts.
Absolutely.
My grandma had passed away at 65 from obesity. And my mom, this is my biological mom that was kind of forced out of my life earlier in life, but she also, I seen and still see behaviors in her that, are super addictive. She'll probably kick me for this, but she has, margarita 4:00 every day. And, and it's her solace. She's all by herself up on a hill with her 2 dogs. It's where she lives. And so, however, but these are behaviors that are really not healthy, right?
Mhm.
And so I got very curious as to why and where all these behaviors were coming into play for my family. And so that's why I like leaned into the behavior aspect and like why do we do these things and this and that. And so I threw that a lot of the philosophies into my mindset classes and into these boot camps, and it was so good. And along that process, we created our gym, we created that atmosphere. We had, like 130 members. We were thriving, doing so well. And then my husband at the time had some addiction issues, which Scott can probably relate to. I was very naive to that. I didn't grow up around drugs or anything like that. And so one of my injuries I had with my shoulder, I'd shattered my greater tuberosity in my shoulder during a BMX race. This is Carrie and her stupid competitiveness. Several years prior to that, and just let it heal on its own. And then, but I created a bone spur that just kept ripping my rotator cuff. And so again, wanting to compete, wanting to do all these things, I let it just keep. And I ended up ripping my labrum and my bicep tendon. So ended up on my back and was able to see life from a little different perspective and seeing some of the things. And I started watching Intervention and I was like, oh,
Seeing the sun,
whoa,
seeing
there's tinfoil that's burned in that bag. That's what that is.
yeah.
Some certain things like that. And so anyway, and bless his heart. He was a really nice guy sober, and he was really not a nice guy unsober. And on drugs and alcohol. It changed who he was. And unfortunately, that was, my life was in danger a few times, and I was losing my family and everybody else around me. And so we ended up splitting up. And it was a very growing time in my life. Some of the biggest blessings came from that experience as far as my growth. And, even looking back on how these things happen for us, I have a program that is called Purpose Driven Coaching, and there's purpose behind it all. And when we can lean into that, there's so much power. So anyway, then that's where I really kind of was in a space of like looking back on my life and where did all of these patterns and things start, right? And I'd been working in therapy on and off for about 7 years. And it was just like the same thing. Go do this, go do this. And it was just like, this isn't really helping. I just feel like you just want me to come back to pay my $120 every single, week or every other week. And it was difficult. And then my sister said to me, Carrie, why don't you try a foot zone? And I said, okay. So I made an appointment, went over and sat down with who's now one of my very close friends and mentors, and she gave me a foot zone. I had more happen in that 50 minutes than I'd had in 7 years of therapy.
So, Carrie, for those of our listeners that don't know, what is foot zoning exactly?
So foot zoning is, I call it reflexology on steroids. It's just that we get to it's all reflexology. Plus, we get to like hone in a little bit on the emotional side of things and why emotions might be, stuck in certain organs and things like that. So, for instance, like with the liver, that is a lot of anger resides there, and it might not even be outwardly. It could be totally inward, and the kidneys are fear. So it makes sense of why. When I even look at a lot of my old clients, why they were in their chair, there was so much fear in their history and in their past. They just lived in that. Wow. But a lot of us do. A lot of us live in that survival place. We just are just going from one thing to another, and we just, I tell you, God set me down with my Achilles rupture, and he set me down with my shoulder because I was running so hard and so fast from life, just because that's just what we did. We were in survival.
So starting all this, now you've done your foot zone, literally changed your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I want to do this. Is that kind of what happened?
Kind of, yeah. And so I was still working at dialysis at the time, and I was finishing up my bachelor's program, and I'd actually been dating a guy long distance. He lived in Alabama, and Andy my husband was actually, he's over here, was actually going to the same gym, and he was in a long distance relationship with a gal from Texas. He had moved to Utah from Texas. And anyway, we just kind of talked on and off about, some of the pain points with being in long distance relationships. We didn't even have each other's phone numbers, just sort of just casual talk at the gym. And then I actually had sold out my CrossFit gym to another gym right before COVID. I think, well, it might have been actually the very beginning of COVID. Such a huge blessing because that hit most of us really hard. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I sold out to them but continued to run their CrossFit program. And I would still been in my healing journey at that point. So prior to me meeting my friend, he was actually a high school friend, and going into that long distance relationship, I took a full year of just working on me. Like if I needed to do memory overlaps, I did that. And that was super powerful because for, a lot of people that have a lot of this fear driven space, going back to a place that there was a big trauma at, it's really difficult. So it didn't matter. I even had my grandson pee on a rock in one place just so to create a new memory over the top of an old one.
That's a good idea.
But it really does help because otherwise we kind of get hyper focused. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back there again. This happened the last time I was there, right? Yeah. And so doing some memory overlaps and then really just leaning into my own healing and what did I need? It was super. It was cool because I even did, during that year, if it scared me, I did it.
Yeah.
I have zero fears. Zero.
Love it.
There's things that I don't want to do and I don't, want to happen, but I'm not fearful of them happening now. Right. And so that was huge. And then, like I said, I had that long distance relationship where I still had time to heal. And then, him and I had decided he wanted to stay in Alabama and I wasn't willing to move. And then Andy and I started, we went on a hike and then it's been us since. So,
That's great.
and anyway, during that time though, that was when I really leaned in hard into this wellness world. I had, like I said, sold the CrossFit gym, and I also was like watching a lot of the things. I was in major burnout during the COVID time, and those types of things, seeing policies and procedures being implemented that I struggled with, because being a small unit that we were, I could look at the client and know what the client needed. And
Give it to them.
yes. And then the policies and procedures say, no, like, you have to give this med when their labs are this. And I'm like, but you don't realize what had just happened the week before. If I do this, then this is going to be the outcome. But it doesn't really matter in the medical world, right? Because a policy is a policy. And if you're not going to follow it, then you get trouble.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was a few pain points for me. And at that point, I decided to step down from my management position at dialysis. And then I went to staff nursing, and one of my very best friends in this world stepped into my job, and it was just difficult still, just because people kept coming to me. And then I was like, well, maybe my real place is in St. George. I had thought that I wanted to live down there, and then I met Andy, and I was like, well, maybe not. Maybe I'm supposed to be here. And he's very anchored where we're at, or had been very anchored where we're at. And so, I went down to St. George. I still decided to try a dialysis position down there. It was not fun. It was not fun.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world in those bigger units. And so I at that point, I was like, I'm just going to put my application into some other places. And so I did with a recovery. It's like kind of recovery treats, 21 days. And I got to go in and I got to be a personal trainer for them. And then I kind of morphed into like a lot of hats there with my nursing background and with my behavior coaching. And that's where I found that the very most important thing that most people don't realize with behaviors and why we're doing what we're doing is the base of self-love and self-worth. Because if my self-love and my self-worth are on check, I don't have any behaviors that don't serve me. I'm nourishing my body. I'm moving my body like I'm supposed to. With CrossFit, I felt like suffering was like part of the best outcome. Like if I wasn't so freaking sore, or I wasn't tasting that nasty taste in my throat from, whatever, like, I'm like, man, that wasn't good enough.
Huh.
I needed to suffer in some way. Right. I mean, I don't know if you guys got the whip marks on your arms from double unders and that kind of stuff, or, taking a barbell, to the chest or whatever, or hitting your shins on a box. Like, you just ripping your hands. That was also like a badge. Like, look at my hands, I'm ripped,
Right.
I'm bleeding, like, and we posted all over social media, and it's like, and did that serve me in that space? Absolutely. Like, I needed to experience that space. And I also realize now, like, what my body needs is more nurturing. And so now I'm leaning more into the somatic movement. We do rebounding. We get people that have been sitting on the couch for a long time, like, just come in and just let's move your body. You're not going to be so sore that you break the toilet when you sit down on it the next day, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
That hurts. So anyway, there is, like I said, I feel like a very big purpose for all of the mechanisms. I'm not bashing on CrossFit at all. I still love CrossFit with every ounce of my soul. Not every ounce, but a lot of my ounces of my soul. But what I do love more than anything is my ability to see what I need and lean into that. So yeah, we do a lot of functional movement, with lighter weights, rebounding, getting the lymphatic moving, really like paying attention inwardly. Because I mean, outside we can be super strong, but inside, I think that was for me an outside cover.
Right.
Yeah.
The stronger I am on the outside, I know I'm going to be stronger on the inside, and that wasn't true.
Yeah. I
Right?
think Scott can relate to that a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up a lot of questions. You're talking about all these healing different things. Let's step back for a moment.
Okay.
And let's just kind of start your early journey, because I presume a lot of the things that kind of happened in your early childhood to your teenage years really have a huge influence on why you're doing what you're doing now, because those are things that I think have those experiences you've learned from, but going through the healing from what happened has really put you in the space that you're in now. So let's kind of start those early years. Let's just kind of, whatever you want to share just about what happened as you were a kid, kind of growing up, and see, when you had your first one at an early age.
Okay. So I believe the best coaches are those that have been through it.
Yep.
Right. Like
Absolutely.
you understand it from a way different level and ability. It's just like with you guys and your history of addiction. Like my addiction has been work, right? And I've always had my RN as my backing. Like so I never really did step into any drugs because if I did and I got caught, I'd lose that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was always like such a blessing for me. And so anyway, that being said, me sharing some of my story is only to inspire and to know I'm going to tell you every single thing I tell you happened for me.
Yeah.
There was a purpose behind it, and I have found a purpose behind every single thing.
Mhm.
And it's really difficult for people, a lot of people, I'm not going to put everybody into this, to look at this and say, how can trauma from a 4-year-old standpoint, how can that happen for you? And it's really cool when you can, because no longer are you the victim. You get to create your life because of, right?
Absolutely.
And so anyway, I at a very young age, my parents, my mom had me, and then 11 months to the day had my other little brother, and then 15 months later had my other little brother.
So very close together.
Very
Sounds familiar,
Yeah,
right?
it kind of sounds like us. Sounds like a lot of our kids.
And so that being said, my dad was very much not present. In fact, my uncle had to go find him at the bar. You know, I'm not going to go into a lot of that story because all my parents are still alive, and they know the story, and that's good enough. But there was just a lot of dysfunction. I don't know. How's that?
That's a good word to use.
Perfect.
So anyway, and that created a space to where I've got conflicting stories with both of them, but they separated nonetheless. I remember, you know, I grew up on a farm, or with a farm in my space, and we had one of those great big, it was a big red truck. You know how the windows or the mirrors, I mean, that come clear out to the side that look like elevator
yeah.
mirrors, and you have this big step that you have to crawl up on.
Uh-huh.
Well, my dad threw all of us in there, and I remember my mom, and I mean, I couldn't have been maybe 3, like later in my 3-year-old life, maybe 4. And she had jumped up on that. And I remember him like hitting her hands and pushing her off into Main Street, because we lived on Main Street in Salina. And that was the start of a lot of big chaos in our lives. My dad, you know, was pretty abusive growing up. And I was a turd as a child. I just was, but my mom had also been forced out of my life, and I didn't understand why, right? So can I say, from a 4-year-old, 5-year-old standpoint, I mean, justifying my actions, probably not, but I can see why I did the things.
You were very
I did.
confused. I mean,
Yes.
at that age, you didn't know what to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And so-
traumatized.
for sure. Like my mom was there, and then all of a sudden another lady's there, and like I'm being told she's my mom, and you know, and all these things. And so anyway, so there was like literally zero emotional availability in my home, along with the physical abuse. And so I remember, I know my first sexual trauma happened at 4. I don't want to go into the details with that, or even who it was. I did some work to try to find out more details, and I'm going to just counsel people, like, sometimes when you don't remember it, there's a reason.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to know the actual details of it, because then it's like more work to try to erase some of that, so it's not your first 4-year-old memory.
Your brain is protecting you.
Yes,
for a reason.
exactly. And so, and sometimes it's really important that you do, but I'm going to tell you, like, from my experience, I had a whole nother layer of healing that I had to experience once that whole memory was exposed. And then that being said, after that, then we actually would go out to the farm every single morning, work at the farm, and then in the afternoon, we got to go to the swimming pool. Once we were able to swim by ourselves, we were able to stay by ourselves. And that's when I experienced a ton of my sexual abuse every single day. From the time, I would guess I was about 8 till 12, I was sexually abused by a group of boys at the swimming pool every single day. And one of those boys ended up raping me when I was 12. So then I just kind of like, I just ended up playing more with, or playing, I love the word play now. I used to hate it because there was so much emphasis behind like you can only play if you go do this or or
There was
just go play and leave me alone. And so
negative content.
yeah, there was a lot of negative. And so now I say play and it like triggers like something in me. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so I started hanging out more with my girlfriends or some girlfriends at that point after that. And then I was still with my dad. There's just not love, like, and so as a freshman in high school and this cowboy come walking up the hall, I just kind of broken it up with another guy from Richfield, and it was our rivalry football game with Richfield and North Severe, which North Severe is Salina, and this cowboy comes walking up the hall, and he just kind of swept me right off my feet. He's a senior, and I started telling him a little bit about my story, and he just kind of just wrapped me up, and he's like, I think I have a solution. If you get pregnant, we can get you out of the house. We'll just get married and blah 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 blah. I was 15. So that really didn't work out. I ended up in a foster home. He ended up with a restraining order on him with some threats from my father that there would be some statutory rape charges if he came into the space. And anyway, I ended up moving to a foster home, and this was when I was still, I mean, I grew up LDS, and so I had an LDS social worker that was very much saying I was going to place this baby for adoption. And I was like, no, this is the first time in my life that I really have felt love from another human. Like, I get to love this human. And anyway, so I ended up having to have an emergency C-section, and I had Colton and was in the hospital with him for 5 days. So my mom, she actually ended up adopting me when I was 8. She was there, and she was never able to have any children of her own. So she bonded with this newborn like I bonded with this newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was Friday, I remember, and the social worker come in and he says, we're here to take the baby. And I'm like, he's not taking him. And my mom said, okay. And so at that point, that was the first time in my life that I finally felt like somebody actually had my back.
Yeah.
And she called my dad and said, we're bringing the baby home. And he says, over my dead body. She says, well, then you can leave.
Good for her.
The first time again in my life, I was like,
Somebody standing up for you.
yeah. So
Just to clarify, this is your mom that your dad remarried.
yeah, this is my mom that adopted me.
Okay.
Yep. So, so I usually refer to them as my parents, but this one you have to separate them. So anyway, at that point, and also my bio mom had come back into my life about that time too, because my parents had thought maybe if I knew her and could talk to her, that maybe some of the things I was going through,
You could work.
yeah. And it was really actually what I did find out is that a big part of me that I felt was so wrong all of my life, I understood once I knew her. All of the things that my mom that adopted me hated with me was her.
You related to her and found commonality with your biological mom.
Yep. And so it really did create a space of like, oh, So anyway, we brought him home in about 3 months. He was about 3 months old, and my dad finally allowed his birth father to come and see him. And he brought him some, like, I don't know, onesies and some diapers or something. And then at that point, he told me he was getting married. Mind you, he had been writing me the whole time saying that he wanted to marry me, all these things. I was devastated. And so I kind of went in a spiral, found the first guy that would give me any of the time of day, and I ended up pregnant again.
Yeah.
This time, though, I knew there was no way that I could, raise 2 little boys still being in high school and make a life for them. So I moved to Logan. I had an uncle that lived there, and then I lived with this cute little family, and I went to school there where I could go to school upstairs and Colton could be in the basement. And then also I was only 16 at the time, but I'd be 17 by the time the baby was, or by the time the CNA program was finished. And so they allowed me to do the CNA program. And also, let me just backtrack just a little bit too. The whole reason behind me wanting to become a nurse was my experience in the hospital when I did have Colton. This is a super cool story. So I went into the hospital, and I think what the whole thought was is maybe if we just teach her a lesson, she'll never want to do this again.
Oh no.
Yes.
It is a small town.
It is a very small town, and we also live in a very, it was very dominant LDS, a lot of that space. And so, um, I went in, and the lady handed me the razor to prep myself for surgery.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm supposed to use, and now you can know what the surgery prep razors look like, right? They're like literally a razor blade with a little plastic cover
Yeah.
over the top.
Yeah. They're pretty
And
scary.
yeah. And I needed to prep underneath my big pregnant belly.
You couldn't see over anyway.
No.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when I remember I was still conscious. It was before they had completely knocked me out when I had Colton, but I was laying there, and he's like, "Who prepped her for surgery?" And I'm like, "I did." And the doctor was furious.
Yeah.
So I get back out to the floor. I'm on the floor, and nobody comes to visit me, like as far as the nurses go. I had blood dripping off of the pad on the bed. My catheter overfilled, like was coming back up into me. I mean, there was just like several things like this that just rolled into it. And anyway, and we ended up at the very end having the administrator and the nurse administrator, both of them came to my house afterwards after they heard what the experience was. And they were super apologetic. And anyway, the the director of nursing at the time, I'll never forget this. Her name is Lenita Sedgwick. She's such a solid person in my life. She just forever will be so grateful for her and her words of wisdom, and even like past this day.
Mhm.
But she looked at me and she says, "Carrie, you'll be able to make a difference because of your story."
Hmm.
She said, "I think you'd be a really good nurse."
Ah, she planted the seed for
She
you.
planted the seed. And I can't tell you how many lives I've changed because of
Just that sentence that she
that
said.
one sentence.
Yeah.
That one little, I believe in you. And I didn't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that was, like I said, I thought like that's a really cool story to go back to share of where I decided to become a nurse. And so again, like I had a kid at 15, I needed to figure out how I was going to support him. While I was in Logan, I received my patriarchal blessing, which is, for all you guys that don't know, that is also something that's, I mean, in the woo world, we call it we call it kind of psychic work, but in the LDS religion, it's definitely like divine inspiration given to a patriarch, and then it's transposed onto paper, and you get to have all of this information.
Mhm.
And so,
Kind of like a psychic reading.
yeah, it would be in better, yeah, in like all terms, it really is.
Yeah.
So anyway, in that it had said that I always needed to strive to be independent and to be able to provide for myself.
Hmm.
And so that was also another like kicker, like you've got to get your nursing. And so I ended up, when I went home, I started working as a CNA at a care center, and then I met my boys' dad, and we met in February after actually I came home, and we dated for a full year during the rest of my sophomore year, and then the beginning of my senior year. And that Christmas he asked me to marry him, and then in late January, we found out I was pregnant with my middle boy,
So how old were you at this time?
18.
18.
Yep.
Okay.
So I literally was pregnant most of my
High school.
high
High
school,
school.
life. So anyway, and I think honestly, like when I hear, other people's stories, I was searching for something, and thankfully it kind of ended this way, because I think it could have been completely different. If I would have had exposure to drugs or anything like that, I think it would have been completely different.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful. And I also have the best relationship with my boys. Like my oldest son, he's 32, and we are so close. We grew up together,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right? Like,
you did.
and he's just, I mean, and he's like me in a boy form, and he's just such a go-getter and an amazing coach. He's changing so many people's lives from, doing what he does. And so anyway, I had Chance, that was my middle boy, and that would have been September of that year. And then I just jumped right into school, and I got my RN at 21, and I've been an RN since.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
It's quite a journey to get to that point. And then during all this time, you really hadn't worked on any of that other stuff that happened because you had
Shoved it.
you shoved it down and you turned it into a focus of taking care of your kids and finding a way to take care of them through your career. Like you said, that was your focus at the point. And we all do it. We talked about it. I mean, men are very, very prone to do it, but it's, interesting to hear now, coming from a different perspective that it's universal. We all do it as humans
Absolutely.
and find that focus. So now you're an RN, you're going through all this stuff happened that we kind of talked about. You had some experiences with addiction and different things, and now you're starting your healing process.
Mhm.
Let's start there. Let's dive into a little bit more. I want to talk more about that first zoning treatment that you did.
Okay.
I want to hear about that experience and really talk about what that happened and how that affected you so people understand kind of really what it's all about.
Okay. So with the zone, when we find some blockages that it might be, or something that's stuck, or sometimes we'll even get a zing, that's a time for us to pause as a zoner and say, like, what's going on, or I mean, intuitively, like most of the time we can really dive in if the clients are open.
You
So-
say zing as like a nerve.
Yeah, it's like
twitching?
literally like, well, for me, like I get a zing that pops into me like through when I'm doing a zone.
Okay.
Like it will zing me.
So the electricity really is coming through their body into yours.
Interesting. And so
Okay.
in the feet, there's like 106 different acupressure points,
Mhm.
and every meridian in the feet or in the body ends in the feet.
All right.
And so it's really cool because when you look at the foot as a whole, on the top of the foot, this is your systems, like your outward system. So you've got your skin, like not your skin, but your chest, your muscles, and a lot of even your hips and the bone structures on the top of your foot. And then when you get underneath, it's when you get into the insides. And that's where it really gets fun, because that's where we like shelf a lot of stuff, right? That's where we end up with heart walls. That's where we end up with, fight or flight. And you get on that adrenal signal and you're like, whoa, And so then as a zoner, and I have the most amazing mentor that taught me, and she has a school actually, the Soul Academy. If you guys are interested in wanting to become foot zoner, she's phenomenal. Anyway, but she, when she was on my feet, I remember her, I don't remember exactly where, but she would stop and she would say, okay, like this emotion's coming through. Would you like to clear it? And so then we would clear the emotion. And since then, I've developed it's called the 3R for releasing technique. And it's simple. It's just once you recognize it, so you recognize that it's there, then you're going to ask to release it. And then what do you want to replace it with?
I think
Yeah.
I've heard of those 3 R's before.
Really?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a great big one for me, because like it you can release it, but if you're not ready to replace it with something and truly believe that you deserve to replace it with something, it's going to open some more stuff right back up.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was it. It was just clearing a lot of those emotions, and some validation of where I had been, and having her actually hear me. 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I couldn't believe it. And then, I mean, I actually had some physical detox things that happened that week after, and then I ended up going back to her 2 weeks later, and I felt the most free that I've ever felt.
Wow.
That second one.
So as they're doing the release, and I'm going to compare it because it sounds very similar to some of the ketamine treatment I did, because when you do that, it allows your body to relax
Mhm.
and then kind of release those things it's been holding on to. And so it sounds like this is pretty similar of the way they're kind of structured, of bringing that energy down slowly through your feet. It allows your body to kind of release it where it's holding it.
Mhm.
So it allows it to flow out, so then you can work with it. Is that right?
Right. And and the feet are vulnerable. Like, I don't know. Do you just let anybody touch your feet?
No.
Right. You?
No, I actually didn't have a pedicure for years and years and years because I couldn't stand somebody to touch my feet.
Right.
I got over that eventually because I found out how nice it was to get a pedicure, but I probably didn't get my first pedicure until I was my late 20s.
Right. And I was a lot the same in my younger years too. But there's been I don't know why, but they've either been gross or sacred. It's the one or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so anyway, but I've always been drawn to feet. When I go into a patient's room, I would put my hand right on their feet, and what was crazy, because instant rapport would happen. it was like I touched their feet and they're like, you could just see their body coming down. And then I was able to like even like meet breathing with them and things like that. And that was something I didn't even realize I was doing until much later in life. It was just a natural rapport builder for me.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I'm not sure where we're going with that, but
No, so I mean, as you're feeling this, so I wanted, as you're doing this now as a practitioner,
hmm
you say you can actually kind of feel it. How do you guide somebody through that as you can feel that emotion or feel those the toxins, I guess you would call them, coming through? How do you guide them through as they're releasing to make them feel more comfortable, and then also to make them realize those 3 R's and make sure they're prepared for it? Like, what's your process?
So it's very individual for each person. I'm very, very intuitive too. I have I mean, a lot of, I'm an intuitive healer as well. So it just depends on the client.
Okay.
Yesterday I had some teenagers in, so they're definitely not going to be, counseled or coached like my 30 and 40-year-olds
Right.
are, right? That haven't had the life experiences yet. So for them, I'm actually coaching them more than I am trying to clear emotions, if that makes sense. And like giving them tools to be able to move forward. So with my 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever year old clients that are coming in, that's a little different. That's where we get to really, really come into the heart center and be like, so first of all, I ask soul to soul connection. Like, is this person ready and willing to clear this emotion, this trauma, this experience? And if I get a yes, and so I'm also a muscle tester. I don't know if you guys are familiar with muscle testing. It's really easy. It's just you leaning in or leaning back, like your body knows, right? And so I also get intuitive hits like yes or no. But anyway, and I get a lot of no's. There's, especially with some men that have been in my chair the first time, that it's very much, it's really uncomfortable for them.
Very resistant.
Yeah. And I usually always get them back. So, and then I'm like, okay, are you ready for a little bit more this time? Right. But again, like, it's just like, I get to just kind of cue in and say, how are you feeling about this? Or is this something, a pattern that you've been seeing in your life? Yeah, kind of. And then I'm like, do you want to expand on it? Yes or no? And then they can go into that. And if they're willing, I'm like, are you ready to stop this? Are you ready to create something different? Right. And this is where we get to choose victim or we get to choose creator. This is the empowerment dynamic. Right. And so if I'm going to choose to stay, there's still like, I've probably still have a secondary gain by staying into this space of victim. And so then we get to go even deeper, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the gains by staying there? Do they outweigh what it would be to feel like you actually get to step now into the creator in your space versus letting this old ruling be your ruler, right?
It's very
And so it just depends. It's very client specific, and I don't know, like my little 80-year-old lady that comes in, sweetest little thing. Sweetest little thing. We've got her on a trampoline. We've got her doing all this
Oh,
kind of
that's
stuff.
awesome.
And her story has been so inspiring.
Huh.
She comes in with AFib. I can flip her right out of it.
Yeah.
On her heart signal on her foot.
So I had never heard of foot zoning before. My dear friend that I worked with, she was in terminal cancer, has multiple tumors along her spine. It was all throughout her body. And this woman is a massive fighter, but she was starting to decline in her cancer journey very quickly. And they'd done the chemo, they'd done the radiation, they'd done all of that. And the doctor, without saying, you have this many months to live, was hinting towards it, that it was time for her to look into hospice, look into end of life care. And she wasn't ready. And so her and her sister started looking into more alternative medicine, and they found foot zoning. And she came back a couple weeks later, immediately looked better. And she did the treatments for about a year. They put her on a few other things like barley grass juice, things like that. And she's in remission now.
It's beautiful.
Which is insane to me, that somebody just looking at their foot and poking around could put somebody into remission who was terminal and was looking at end of life care before that. It just blows me away that that is how powerful this is.
Right. Well, and it's the power of the mind too, right? Because for a long time, I mean, we go in and that we will believe what the doctor says.
Yeah.
We will buy into that belief
Right.
because that's what we've been taught.
Mhm.
And so when we start pushing back and saying, you know what, like, I'm not going to accept this. This is not my truth.
Yeah.
My truth is this. Our body will respond internally that way.
Yeah.
We are so freaking cool. And like, that was like a big thing too for me because my science brain says, I need to understand this.
Mhm.
We can't. Like,
Yeah.
you just can't. Like, you just go into with it and with faith and like and just lean in. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
It will change your life.
Well, it goes to show that we have so many toxins in our life. We have, as far as mental toxins, we have the media, different books, music, all these different things we put in our brain all the time, and it influences us. Then you have all the toxins that we eat every day, all the processed foods, different things,
Plastic.
plastics, all these things, all those combined create these illnesses in our body.
Mhm.
But then we start exploring these natural different ways with, I know you do some sound healing.
Yeah.
Sound now, our good friends Frankie and Jess have had a sound healer on their podcast talking about how they do full month treatments and people are completely in remission with their cancer and different things. And, with what you're doing in the zoning now, we've seen it in our lives that it's happening. All these different things. It's amazing when you just let go and decide to let these toxins come out of your body, how your body will heal itself from the mind down.
Absolutely. And our body is teaching us too, right? The cancer shows up, the pain in my shoulder shows up, whatever mechanism it is, right? There's two great big different variables there, but our body's still trying to teach us something. And if we're not going to listen, it's going to hit us harder and harder and harder until we do.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, again, like, Scott and I, like with the CrossFit world outside, man, we were killing it. Looked good, like we were strong. We're doing all of it. Inside, you just have this internal, just like still something going on, right? And that's what we end up.
something.
Yeah, we end up with high blood pressure. We end up with kidney issues. We end up with liver issues, or we just might end up with a injury that puts us flat on our back, and then we can't lift the weights. And then what?
Right.
When I first met Scott, he was still very much into that CrossFit world and working out all the time. And he had an injury and he couldn't work out. And unfortunately, I saw the other side, the internal things that he was battling that he could not release because of working out. That was his release. And I remember telling him, babe, you've got to find some other type of release because unfortunately we are getting older and your body's not going to be able to continually work out the way that you are. So I really tried to encourage him to find other avenues to be able to release those emotions. And it's set us on this whole entire journey. So,
Yeah. It's moving the body. Your body just needs movement.
Just wants to move. And, a lot of that was learning that there was so much I was masking just by doing the working out. And that was keeping my mind off everything when I actually had the time to slow down. And when all the cancer stuff happened and the doctors were like, we got to figure this out. When I went back in earlier this year and he looks at me and he's like, it's all gone. And he's just like, why?
and
We had a very long discussion about everything I'd been doing over the last year. And he's like, you're healing yourself. You're taking care of yourself. Like you're getting rid of this. This is what's been causing it. He's like, don't stop because now all this is happening. But now I realize that all I was doing is trying to, like you were talking about, replace one thing with another instead of actually just saying, stop. Let's figure out why we're replacing, why we're covering this up. Now that the fact that we've been working through that, it's been an amazing journey. And it's awesome that you found not one, but multiple ways that now you can do this depending on the person that walks through your door.
Absolutely. And that's where the intuitive healer comes in. It's so cool because, they might be registered or signed up for a foot zone and they'll walk in and be like, I think we need to throw you in some detox first, and then let's talk about how you're feeling. Or maybe you just need a coaching session, right? And so, but I'll tell you, my best coaching is on their feet.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I've just got them in a space where the people are just so much more open,
Yeah.
and it's been really cool. And I just want to, I mean, even echoing a little bit off of what you just said, like with our own personal journeys and us healing ourselves, like the ripple effect is like when we throw, you guys have heard the story, we throw the stone in, we see the ripple go out. But what we don't realize sometimes is that when it comes back, because the energy always comes back to the stone tenfold. And so remembering that really is, and like, I mean, our kids, our grandkids, all of those, I mean, what we're doing now is really, setting the stage for them to not have to like go into that suffering space
Right.
like we did.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like even with your own kids and your family, abusive parents and chaotic situations like that, it's likely they grew up with that as well.
Hmm.
And you were able to break that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's huge.
It's really cool. I know one day I was doing a foot zone on my youngest son, and I was like, I'm like on his hips, and I'm like, my gosh, Race, like, why are we like so blocked? And I just kept going through and trying to open him up. I'm like, I mean, why are you not wanting to like open your heart up? Like, what's going on? He's like, maybe it's because of the abandonment issues that you created, Mom. I'm like, oh, tell me more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My old self would have like went into like,
Complete defensive mode at the
yeah,
moment,
like,
right?
what are you talking about? Like, I did the best I could. Well, yeah, and like this is actually his truth.
Yeah.
So now, like in my, my healthy self, I can say, okay, yeah, let's talk about this. Tell me more about this. In my second marriage, when I went right from their dad into another marriage, and I thought that religion was going to be the save all. I found a guy that had been married in the temple prior. He had 3 kids that were right around Rayson's age, because there's 8 years difference in between him and my middle child. And so anyway, he was in my life for 7 years. But I mean, he proposed to me in the bishop's office. I mean, like
Right.
we were really had this like a lot of people pushing us forward. So I never really got to experience seasons with him. And I will recommend highly people experience every season with a person before saying yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, but he was in my life for those 7 years, and 6, 7 years. And all of a sudden we divorce, and those kids are gone. He's gone. And Grayson's like, where's my family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but they were just, I mean, it was just like here and gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, totally could see the abandonment. Didn't even think about it prior to that.
Well, and he was so young too at the time. That's
Yep.
all he
He knew.
knew.
Yep.
And thought it was going to be there forever, like
Yep.
most kids do.
Yep.
So,
So it's interesting.
yeah.
It's so cool though. Man, it feels so good to be in this space where you just don't take things personal. You just like, you can actually just say, okay, like, really what's going on with this, and what is this supposed to be teaching me? Because everything is a teacher. And if we can look at it like that, it's so empowering.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So I keep having this question bounce in my head. And I got to ask it. I know Andy's over here on the couch, so everybody can't see him, but I just wanted to ask, have you been able, when you guys started dating, did you do any type of zoning with him to kind of connect with him better? I just have to ask this question.
this is a fun story because my perception and his is way different. So I actually zoned him before we were even dating.
Okay.
And he said I put a superpower over him and made him like fall in love with me at that point. So anyway, but we like, I mean, that was probably what, a month and a half prior to us dating, that I'd done a foot zone on him, and he's actually a foot zoner too now. He's a phenomenal foot zoner. He does, and he does the sound stuff so beautifully and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's been a journey. Him and I have had quite the little journey, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun. It's
yeah.
fun.
Seeing that you guys are now connecting, not only because you guys have this love for each other, but now you have this internal connection that you guys have been able to find because of where you guys are at in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not been an easy journey. I was way ahead of the game when it comes to healing. When Andy came into my life, he still had some to do, and so for me, that was also a learning space to be able to say, okay, like I know where I'm at, and he's still learning. And I mean, it was probably 2 years that we've been like, and we're just finally at this space where, okay, here we are. And yeah, he had an experience in a sweat lodge. We actually went and done one together. I don't know if you guys have done sweat lodges before. If you haven't, you should lean in.
I have a friend that actually owns a sweat lodge business and keeps telling me to come up and do it.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so, so cool. But anyway, there's been a few different things that have happened that way where like he's just really got to see. And it's difficult. I know that you can probably even vouch to this, and you too, having your spouse try to coach you.
Yeah.
It's
Ugh.
Yeah, we tried that for a short minute, and then yeah, that was gonna happen.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's CrossFit, it doesn't matter whether or not it's like, you know, in this life and life and wellness coaching, it doesn't matter. Like he had to experience it and feel it on his own way without me being the instrument
Right.
that did it. Right.
Huh?
But what's the coolest thing is when we finally have come together and been like, okay, like we're on a team. Like we function as a team. We are a team, and moving forward, like we can't assume ill intent, right? Like it always has to be like, what's our actual truth in the matter? Because when we come into a marriage, and you guys can also probably account to this, and there's been other experiences, it's hard not to want to let them tag along with you.
Mhm.
And like, so always coming back to the truth has been like the best advice I could give in any relationship at this point in our lives, especially if you've had other relationships that have had some pain points that, you know, if you want to carry them in your backpack and bring them into that marriage, it's gonna be part of that marriage.
Mhm.
But what's the actual truth in that marriage,
Right.
in that space?
Mhm.
So
No, that's great
Absolutely
advice.
beautiful.
So
yeah,
no, this has been so informative. I've learned so much already. I'm like excited. I want to come down and spend a couple days at your clinic. I'm
I
not gonna
definitely
lie.
do.
yeah. we're also in the works of opening one up in Sand Hollow. So we have a retreat. Kind of, we do retreats there, but we need a place that we can actually do a lot of our stuff there, and we have a team there that's excited to help us
Great.
create all of that. So
Yeah.
it'll be a retreat center and a wellness center.
Lots of cool things coming up for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. We talked briefly, but you have a retreat coming up in towards the end of June. Let's hear about that. Is it women? Is it couple? What is this retreat about? What are you guys going to do?
Okay. So I actually just got done with my course. It's called My Life in My Balance. Like, cause I think a lot of programs and a lot of courses out there, it's very like, do it this way and you're going to succeed.
Right.
Right. And I also took the chakra system and turned it into like, I refer to as energy systems, because as a professional, like if I would have heard the word chakra early on in my life, I'd have been like,
That's
woo,
hokey.
woo, woo, yeah, hokey, yeah,
Woo.
no,
Those.
you know. And so knowing that they're energy centers, and knowing that literally it is seventh grade science and how this all works, like we got taught this. And so changing the wording just a little bit to help burnt out professionals specifically, that's like not just specifically, there's all of them, but like that's where my heart goes to, because I was there and I can feel that on all of the levels. So helping people feeling burnout, that have been feeling burned out or are burnt out at some point or somewhere in their life, finding that some way to be able to bring alignment into their life. So that is what this course is. It's a 7-day program, and it has from Sunday we talk about, and it's interesting because we do this already, you guys. Like Sunday is our crown chakra. That's the day we usually always, like, people go to church, people have some kind of spiritual connection on that day. A lot of us get like a little bit messed up there, because like that's usually like, oh, I've got to make sure I'm doing all my food prep and this and this and this and all this. That's where we get out of balance with it. And then Monday is our third eye, you know, or our intuitive center. Like, what am I calling in for our day? And this is again a place where we can get distracted with meaningless meetings that happen on for a lot of people on Mondays. That was my biggest meeting day, was on Mondays.
Yep.
And like, and then we work all the way down through it. So we have a retreat that's set up. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way through through Saturday, where we'll focus on each one of those energy system in correlation with the course. So that's the one of them. And then the next, like 2 weeks later, we're doing the Unleash Your Light retreat, where we'll have 2 days that we retreat, and then one day where you'll go have an experience, whether it's on the side-by-sides or at the lake, and then 2 days retreat. And then, so anyway, but a ton, I have a super, super amazing group of people that I get to do this with,
Yeah.
and it's fun.
So everybody's welcome to this then.
Absolutely.
Open to
Yes.
everything. Okay.
Yes. And so we do have bunks available that there's a one side that's in the main house and then another side on the casita that have bunks. So those will be specific for female, male. And then the king suites, they could be couples or, I would take a girlfriend with me, like if one of my close friends, and we could share a king bed, no problem. But it just depends on the person. So those would be like discounted if they do those. But yeah, so there's king suites that couples can come if they want, or you and your friend, or just by yourself. Maybe you just want to come by yourself and enjoy the king suites by yourself. That's great too. Yeah, that's it. We don't care. Like everybody come. Everybody
That's
come.
awesome.
We'll do specific ones later in the year where it's just males or just females. And I'd like to actually coordinate with you if you're interested in coming and helping with our men's retreats. That would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely talk about that. So, but that was great. And we will make sure we're going to post all of this information in the podcast description. Easiest way to find you right now is through Facebook, or do you guys have a website as well?
We do, but it's through Kajabi. So it
Okay.
might be a little easier to find us on Facebook
Okay. It's just-
or Instagram.
And it's just Reclaim Wellness, right?
Reclaim Wellness. And then we also have Soul Sync Retreat, which is under Reclaim Wellness. We just call them Soul Sync. So
Will you go through all of the services that you offer at Reclaim?
at Reclaim, we do. I have a massage therapist that has a list that's so long I can't even tell you. But she's very intuitive, does a lot of energy type work.
Okay.
And then we do all detoxing. So we do ionic foot baths. We even have the capability of coming and doing a great big group for foot baths. So, and that one was another one that blew my mind science wise, because I'm like, no, how does this happen? But it's crazy. And I mean, I tore my meniscus in my knee and fixed it by I have zero pain in my knee from doing after the ionic foot bath. So there, and then we have red light therapy. We actually has blue light as well, which really helps, like, like if you're struggling with your circadian rhythms, or if you're a lot of anxiety, that just helps bring you down. Like people look almost drunk when they walk out of there, like, oh, I feel so good.
Yeah.
And then we do have the sauna, the infrared sauna that has a chromiotherapy, which is a different light therapies as well. And then I do foot zoning coaching, and I mean, I have several different coaches. We even have a death doula, which is so cool.
Wow.
Right? Like some things that you just don't even think of. We have a lot. If whatever you're needing, you have it.
And you do basic physical
Yes.
coaching as well, kind of get people started with a program, nutrition as well. Am I right? Correct?
Yeah.
And physical therapy, right?
Not physical therapy. I have a physical therapy aide that does some of our personal training, but but not physical therapy per se.
And as this is growing, what's your vision in the next couple of years? Where do you want to see Reclaim Wellness?
So Reclaim Wellness, the way I have set it up is that I'm not anchored there.
Mhm.
I want to be out. I want to be on stage. I want to be, doing summits and retreats and being out and helping people, just step into some of this, just like dip their toe in just a little bit, just because, like, you guys, I can't tell you the freedom I feel within my own self from embracing just some of this, right? And then, going all in, the massive amount of freedom. And like, it doesn't matter. I could have somebody walk up to me on the street and say all these nasty things, and I can look at them and I can love them, right? That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I want. I want to spread that. I want to teach people that self-worth isn't here, right? It's here. And like for most of us, I grew up thinking worthiness was something that I had to earn, or I had to do something to become worthy. And that's definitely, a lot of our culture has been taught that. And so, externally, we're looking for validation. We're looking for a lot of these things that are so ego driven. And we know, like, one of my favorite podcasters is Ed Milet. And the one thing that he said to me one time, or said to me because it hit me, right?
Yeah.
Ego means etching God out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I've looked at that, like, where am I not in alignment with my best and highest self if I'm letting ego drive? So there's somewhere out of alignment, and that's where a lot of my life and my balance courses come in to play with.
I love it.
Oh, so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. I'm excited.
I'm definitely going to be hitting you up for foot zoning. I
love
can
that.
say that.
Well, before we finish, I know you've listened to a couple episodes, so we get to turn the table over to you.
Okay.
Any question that you have for either of us individually or as a couple or whatever you want to ask, it's your time for a minute.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit, maybe, or I'm just going to ask both of you. So I've started this My Purpose my purpose driven coaching, which brings in your HD design. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with Carol Tuttle or not, but she also has 4 energy types that you can kind of look at a person and see by like their facial structure and a few things. And then, some things about them. And then zodiac signs and things like that. Where have you guys found that you might clash a little bit? And have you guys explored your HD designs yet?
No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We have not.
So how about your zodiac signs? Have you guys explored those?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm more of the dreamer and more of the ambitious and and she's the very.
I'm a Libra, so I level things out very
Very
much. And sometimes I constantly feel like I'm pulling him down out of the clouds, but I try to be as supportive as I can, and I believe in him.
Yeah.
I believe in what we're doing. And
So
I feel like we balance each other out. We have lots of opposites. Even my mom was like, I don't know if you guys have enough in common. I'm like, but we do. The things that we do have in common are so strong, and opposites do attract. And that's kind of how I feel like we fit sometimes.
I love that.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys are interested, if you want, I would love to send you guys both a blueprint of like this thing that this purpose, my purpose-driven coaching is kind of, I create a blueprint that's very specific to each person. And then I can bring you guys in as a couple and you guys can kind of see your strengths and some ways that you might actually can see some red flags. And when you see those red flags really early on, it kind of helps prevent like little tiffs or frustrations and those types of things. But for me, like with my HD design, when I found like my out of balance and my out of alignment is frustration. And so is my husband's. And so now when I see him hit frustration, I'm like, okay, babe, like I see that you're frustrated. He knows that that's a safe word for us to use, right? It's not a triggering word. And so like, what's going on? Yeah. Where are you out of alignment? Where, is there something that I can do, or can I hold space for you? It just created a whole new place for us to be able to speak.
Yeah.
Opens that conversational space that's safe.
Yeah.
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 We've definitely navigated some of that too a lot better than when we started. So
yeah.
But I can usually tell when he's out of balance. So
yeah, it's usually like you need to go do this now and then come back and see me in an hour.
Yeah. Go do your cold tub and then come back and we'll revisit this.
It's so cool. And I think the older we get, the more we see that in each other. Like, and we can hold space for some of that. At least I feel like that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I was joking this morning before you guys were getting here. I'm like, I don't think Carrie's ever seen me out of gym clothes and in competition mode.
No. You probably haven't seen me either.
Yeah, so this is like a whole new space where we're just relaxing, just really intuitive with each other. Like this is a different space than we've ever been in, and it's been fantastic.
Holding conversation.
I really appreciate you taking the time to come up, and I'm excited to share this with everybody listening, and I hope that people will explore a little bit. It's one thing we talk about in I Love You Bro group. It's one thing we talk about here on the podcast is as far as medical treatments and therapies and self-care, there is not one thing that is good for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is individual and needs to find the one that works for them, and don't stop.
Yeah.
If you get stuck and you try 2 or 3 things and it's not working, keep trying.
Keep trying.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of a fun thing too, with like doing some retreats and those types of things. Especially if you have a group that's holding the retreat, like with my group, it's pretty interesting because I have a rapid eye tech. I have they're called the love healers, but and then in hypnotherapy, and we have and massage, and lots of different modalities. And so if you can find something like that to expose yourself to, where you can be exposed to several different modalities instead of trying to figure just one out at a time, you might find something that clicks a little bit easier. Yeah. And not only that, but sometimes when you do jump into something like that, like you have one and another, and like we're able to clear tons of stuff all at once. Yeah. So
make it a very, very great experience over those few days.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the biggest thing I love where I go to therapy, because I've seen almost every therapist in the building, because I know, hey, I need to go see this one because he's going to help me with this, or she's going to help me better with this. And just don't get stuck in this, only one person thing.
Yeah. And see, I think that's where I was a little bit, because where I'm at, there's not a lot of options, or there wasn't. There now is where I'm at now. In fact, I've got some amazing friends that are therapists. And so anyway, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again. This has been amazing. We'll put all the information in the podcast description, put our information on the website for you guys. Don't forget, the best way you can help somebody today is by sharing this episode with somebody that needs to hear it. Spread the word, comment, like. It's how we can keep doing this for you guys, is by sharing the messages that we're doing. We appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, we love every single one of you, and we hope that this week you will survive the pickles that life's thrown at you. So this is Scott saying thank you again.
Take care, everybody. We love you.
What an amazing episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Carrie and hearing her amazing story that she's gone through in her life, and about Reclaim Wellness and the great work they're doing here in the state of Utah. As promised, we wanted to tell you about a special offer just for our listeners here on Surviving Life's Pickles. Carrie is hosting a retreat called Unleash Your Light Retreat. It is happening from June 23rd to 28th. It is a 5-night, 6-day retreat, and it's for anyone ready to break through emotional blocks, understand their energetic blueprint, and reconnect with who they are truly. It's packed with healing, creativity, clarity, and aligned action. Now, if you're interested in this retreat, click on the link in the podcast, go check it out, and use our promo code PICKLES, all caps, to save $500 off this exclusive offer for our listeners, specifically for this retreat. Again, the promo code is PICKLES, all caps, on Carrie's link that is in the podcast description. Thank you again for being dedicated listeners. We hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.